Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash, brought to you by Swiss America Trading Corporation. I'm here today with a co-host that I've had a few times before, and it's always a treat and a pleasure to have him with us. I have Dr. Jerome Corsi. Good morning, Jerry. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to the show.
Well, likewise, I'm doing the same. And we actually had you on our just most recent podcast as well. I'm glad to have you back already a second time. And we'll get right into it here. We even on our previous podcast that you and I did together, we discussed what was happening with central banks buying gold, where some of the forecasts or projections for gold prices and appreciation have been by some of the experts or analysts out there. And we touched on BRICS, the alliance that's been formed. Originally, it started as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they have been collecting new nations to join and align themselves with BRICS. And as we've talked about in other podcasts, Jerry, the sell, and by the way, Putin is really one of the people who's really at the forefront of moving BRICS along here. And the thing with it is it's not a tough sell, because what they're telling these nations is that by joining BRICS, you're going to be de-dollarizing your nation a little bit, which means you're not going to be so heavily reliant or dependent upon the dollar. And a direct benefit to that is it's going to help strengthen your local economy, your local currency, et cetera, which that's music to the ears of any country out there. Now, there's been many people in government and analysts out there who have really kind of downplayed BRICS, saying that it's, in a way, Jerry, they've even kind of referred to it as a fad, something that was going to be here today, gone tomorrow type thing. But as you start taking a look at it, number one, it's growing and gaining momentum literally by the day. But as we look at this first article here, and I'll read you the title, which those of you tuning in visually, you can see. After oil, BRICS accounts for 72% of the world's rare earth metals. Now, the BRICS nations represent 42% of all the oil out there. But when you talk about rare earth metals, they represent 72%. And let me tell you something, rare earth metals is something that every country needs, this world needs, to make things run. So how could there be any reality, in your opinion, or in your estimation, Jerry, that this BRICS thing is going to be a here today, gone tomorrow thing? When you're looking at its growth, you're looking at the resources they control and the benefits that these nations receive by way of joining BRICS. How could this be a fad, or is it a fad in your opinion?
No, I think this is a very brilliant strategy, quite frankly. The BRICS nations, as you pointed out, started out as a very small alliance, but they've been expanding. And the expansion has not only include some of the Middle Eastern petro-based economies, but they're very brilliantly looking to acquire and bring into the alliance countries that have these rare earth minerals. Now, 72% of all world's resources of rare earth minerals is like the same strategy as putting gold in the central bank. This is far-reaching. This is foresighted. This is planning for the future, and understanding that, for the United States economy, we're debasing our currency. We're printing money we don't have. We're, expending and using up all these rare earth minerals, which again are not as plentiful here in the United States as they are in other countries. But when you say, which countries do we want in BRICS? And we're looking around and saying, well, what rare earth minerals do you have? Now we're realizing the future world economy is going to be very dependent on rare earth minerals. The oil and natural gas, I think, are virtually an unlimited and huge amount of supply yet remaining. We never did run out, but you're going to have nuclear come on, you're going to have other sources, but you're not going to be able to produce new rare earth minerals. And kind of cornering 3/4 of the world's rare earth minerals is like putting gold in the central bank. This is a future strategy, and I think it's quite brilliant, and I think it's going to assure that in the next 25 years, the BRICS nations are going to emerge as a major, major force economically.
I would agree. And, it's interesting that as we've been following this on our podcast for months and months now, as it unravels, and it actually I really wouldn't even say unravels, Jerry. It's more like a snowball rolling down a hill, just getting
Right.
bigger and bigger. The the points and the aspects that are surrounding BRICS make it more relevant, more believable, and for lack of a better term, a threat. I mean, at the forefront of this effort, this move to establish BRICS and to form this alliance, as we've talked about many, many times, their purpose in large part is de-dollarization, getting away from the US dollar. And they're doing that for a lot of reasons. Putin has been pretty specific about it. He wants to reign supreme. He does not want the dollar to be in the position of world dominance as it's been for decades and decades now. And so with that said, we talk about, how these resources and these minerals and whatnot that BRICS is a major, major holder of as it relates to the group as a whole. In the next article about BRICS, this analyst is predicting a US economic crisis and gets into what this means for the dollar. So tell us, like, there's a crisis coming. I know you're familiar with this article. And what does this mean for the dollar? What might we expect to see as this continuum of BRICS, gets stronger and stronger?
We're just continuing to print money we don't have. And we're pumping the U.S. money supply by 40% in an 18-month period of time. Now that boosts the stock market, but it's like living on heroin or cocaine or drugs. I mean, it's a quick fix. But what impresses me so much about the BRICS nations is that they're saying, okay, we've got 42% of the nations, the world's oil and natural gas, but 3/4 of the rare earth minerals. So these countries today might be developing, but 25 years from now, the developed countries are going to be knocking on the door saying, we're going to need to buy some of these rare earth minerals, and they're the bank. This has been a brilliant strategy to say, we will now be the emerging nations while the currently developed world is going into debt, overwhelmed with social welfare systems, unsustainable payments, and mounting interest on the national debt, which quite frankly is never going to be paid. So our bonds are going to become worth less. We're going to be having a harder time raising the money we need with this liquidity. And you've got the BRICS nations sitting there saying, well, whether you want to make refrigerators or you want to make electric batteries or whatever you want to make, you're going to need rare earth minerals, and we've got them. We've got them locked up. Sure. So you better get ready to buy them, and it's not going to be cheap to come to us. We will cash in on those days. I think it's just a brilliant strategy for a way to have economic development, and it encourages me to think that we're undergoing a major economic game changer, and these BRIC nations have got to be taken very seriously. They're going to be the future.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jerry. And it's interesting to note on the BRICS topic as well. This is not something where these nations who are jumping on board, they do not have to abandon their current course in terms of what they're doing with their economy, their market, et cetera. This is kind of like an enhancement. This is something that it's just adding, and to your point, kind of a future value and a future benefit that, again, what the problem for us here in the United States is that our currency, our dollar, is getting caught in the crossfire. And to some extent, or to a great extent, deservedly so, because we are so much in debt. We have been kind of the big bully on the block financially for a lot of years. And these other nations are now recognizing this. And as the old saying goes, Jerry, there is strength in numbers. And these guys are growing and gaining in numbers literally by the day.
And what impresses me so much, Dean, is that they're not abandoning a dollar strategy. They're continuing to be very involved in the dollar, but they're decreasing the dollar activity. It's a conscious plan to move to an increasing percentage of de-dollarization, an increasing percentage of gold reserves in the central bank, an increasing percentage of rare earth minerals in the rare earth bank. and at the same time participating in the dollar. I mean, this is going to be a trend. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. Eventually, the slower, you think, well, the tortoise couldn't possibly win. Well, the tortoise wins because it's got a steady strategy that's calculated long term, and stability, and making the distance. Whereas what we're doing right now is we're just expanding our resources wildly, uh, mortgaging our future on a present that's largely already massively in debt. And there's no real solution to this because we're not stockpiling gold where we should. We're not stockpiling rare earth minerals. We abandon the future for just keeping this, bloated ship afloat. And I think the BRIC nations are quite brilliant in their strategy to subtly shift in a way that has a long-term view. So Russia's leading the strategy, China's leading the strategy, and we're headed towards a multipolar economic world in which we may no longer be the leader 25 years out.
I agree. And for those of you tuning in, if you hear this, you wonder, well, what effect or impact is this going to have on me? We've seen other countries what happens when their currency, the confidence factor is gone, when the value is lost. And what can we do? What can you and I do? All of us here that are listening and watching this whole dynamic take shape. This is where the key concept of being financially diversified comes in. Take a page from central banks. Look at what BRICS are doing. Look what large institutions are doing. They're buying physical gold right now. And never before has there been a better time to do that, in so much as that not only can you take a page from what all of these other participants are doing, but you've got multiple market analysts, forecasters, experts out there who are talking about gold prices getting into the thousands, several thousands of dollars. As you talk about, Jerry, the treasury situation, the amount of debt that we have here in this country. A podcast we did not long ago talks about how gold prices could reach prices of 16,000 to as much as $40,000 an ounce, which sounds incredibly unbelievable. But when they started breaking it down, they were saying that as it pertains to the amount of treasury debt that's out there in relation to the amount of gold out there and what it would take to kind of balance that situation out. Regardless of the case, what I've always loved about gold, I don't know a single soul on earth, and I've never read anything about a single soul on earth where they've gone broke owning physical gold. Paper currencies, intangible paper assets, as great and as strong as they can be in their day, they do possess that ability to basically evaporate value-wise overnight, and we don't want that to happen to anyone. So for those tuning in, thank you for doing so. And if you'd like more information on this, the Walking Liberty $50 offer we have, the Secret War on Cash, Jerry had mentioned that on our last podcast. We look to get a huge response from that. This is something that is just a great entry point for anybody looking to get into the marketplace. You can learn more about that by calling us at 1-800-289-2646, or if you'd like, visit us online, www.swissamerica.com. We'd love to give you any information you need to help make the best, most educated decision you can for your future, for your family, and what's in store for us as it relates to the future economy.
Indeed, I think there's a lesson here to be learned from the BRIC nations. In other words, the advice isn't for people to stop strategies they're doing right now. It's to have a shift in the emphasis. So if you begin to increase your precious metals awareness and knowledge and investing as a percentage, so you've got a strategy to increase that percentage, doesn't mean you've abandoned what you've done, but you now stockpiled for the future, knowing where it's going. And when you get there, you'll have already prepared, having made that shift with fiat currency that's going to be worth less as you go forward, putting it into an increasing percentage of precious metals assets that are going to be worth more, just like the rare earth minerals are going to be worth more in the future. It's a forward-looking strategy. And that's always what I liked about Swiss America. It's a matter of consultative selling, of understanding what precious metals investing really means. And these BRIC nations deserve to be emulated. What they're doing is quite brilliant.
I couldn't have said it better. I thank you for that, Jerry. Well, if you're not subscribed to this podcast, please do so. Follow us on social media. And if you have not contacted our office for some complimentary information as well as maybe getting some questions answered, do that as well. Jerry, I appreciate you being with us again and look forward to having you again. And as we say every time we talk about BRICS, this story ain't over. There's going to be plenty more to talk about.
It's just beginning, and I'll be delighted to come back anytime you ask, Dean. Thank you.
Perfect. And for those of you tuning in, have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.